Welcome to DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11, taking a look at tonight's 11-game slate. Jumping right into it here, you got the Reds and Pirates. Homer Bailey facing Ivan Nova. Looking to attack Ivan Nova tonight, who obviously moving out of Yankee Stadium, moving out of the AL East, should receive a little bit of a bump. But you look at Ivan Nova, really hasn't been great against both sides of the plate, more so against lefties. 376 WOBA allowed to lefties since last season. A big-time 1.75 home runs per nine. Righties 322 WOBA, 1.30 home runs per nine. I don't mind Billy Hamilton 4-2 there. Certainly intriguing at that price with some stolen base upside. Joey Votto, obviously not a big park factor, bump here just because it's not in Great American Ballpark, it's in PNC. But 5K, obviously it's reasonable. I think it's contrarian. You're not going to get these Reds at high ownership, but the matchup certainly is solid for those lefties, and even Adam Duvall at 4-8 is always intriguing. But after that, it's pretty limited with this Reds team. And obviously the subtraction of Jay Bruce really downgrades this offense as a whole. Not something I'm jumping all over, but I do think it is worth a mention just given the fact that Ivan Nova really isn't that great of a right-handed arm. And Homer Bailey on the other side, you can definitely take a look at some Pirates bats. I still don't mind McCutchen at 3-4, but obviously it's just more GPP playable at this point, just hoping he gets that big upside game. Starting Marte, 5K, still a little on my price tag, and Polanco is hit or miss for being in the lineup tonight. I don't mind Polanco if he is in the lineup, certainly a lot of upside there. John Jaso's the guy who obviously 2,300 for a first baseman. Usually you are looking to pay up at first base, but if you were looking to stack cores, given the fact that they don't really offer a first baseman in that game between both sides, you can certainly take a look and kind of stack around it. Obviously, it's a huge discount, and Pirates are projected for 4.5 runs. You can take whatever you want for that, just because we haven't seen the offense really been great this year. But also, I think this game overall, kind of like how it's been in the past, is pretty lackluster. Giants Nationals here. I'm really not looking to attack Steven Strasburg with any bats. I know the Giants are priced down, but I think I'll kind of just stay away and focus more so on the national side of things, who I like quite a bit here. You look at Matt Cain since last year, 404 WOBA to lefties, 1.60 home runs per nine. Obviously, you got to like that Bryce Harper price tag at 4.5, even though his struggles have continued. Daniel Murphy, 5.4. If you are looking to pay up for a second baseman, I definitely don't mind that. And Trey Turner continues to be a nice steal here on DraftKings. The price is slowly coming up at 4.2 is really a nice value. You just look at Kane, who really hasn't been great against righties either. 344 WOBA, 1.82 home runs per nine. So I'll definitely be finding a way with a Wilson Ramos, a Jason Worth. Anthony Rendon at 4.8 is a little out of my price range, but I'm definitely a big fan of this Nationals offense tonight, as well as Strasburg, so I'm not really picking on the Giants either. Orioles and White Sox, Chris Tillman versus Carlos Rodon. With Rodon on the hill, really hasn't been great against righties. He is hit or miss at times. He can miss some bats. It's also something to consider. But 364 WOBA to righties, 1.39 home runs per nine. And that's also something that I'm looking at some of those right-handed bats with, like a cheap Steve Pearce at 4K. You can use him at second base, which is nice. I don't mind Matt Wieters at 2,600. That's certainly an intriguing option. And still Trumbo, Machado, Adam Jones. I know some of those guys don't hit lefties well outside of Trumbo. Like Machado's more of a reverse splits guy. Adam Jones is kind of fallen off against lefties. But given the fact it is a nice ballpark, Jones has a nice price tag. Same thing with Machado. I'll definitely be giving them a look. And same thing with the Jonathan Scope. I do think, just given the fact that even though there are some struggles with left-handed pitching, there's definitely a lot of upside there, and a lot of offer at that price tag. So I definitely don't mind it. As far as the White Sox go, I'm not really looking to use a lot of guys here. Todd Frazier certainly intriguing at 3.4 with his upside. You do look at Tillman, 1.35 home runs per nine against right-handed bats going back to last year. Him and Abreu certainly could have that upside for a very cheap price tag, both under 3,500. Outside of that, Tillman, okay against lefties, not a lot of home run potential there. But the White Sox are in play. Tillman's a guy who I expect to kind of regress from time to time. So for me, just kind of looking at the White Sox as more of a contrarian move, if anything. Rangers and Astros next, and you got Doug Fister and Lucas Harrell. And given the fact that Fister has struggled against lefties big time this season, allowing over a 350 WOBA, you want to go back to last year, 343 WOBA, 1.50 home runs per nine. I think a lot of these bats are certainly intriguing. One, Carlos Beltran at 3,600, who has crushed righties this year. An Odor at 4.2, you got to like. Shin-Soo Choo, 4.3, is leading off there in that new offense. I definitely don't mind. But the right-handed bats, Fisher's been fairly tough on this year. At Desmond, Beltran, obviously the two that are at the top of the lineup. Luke Roy has hit righties very well this year, so I don't mind plugging him in. Rangers offense kind of trending down as far as Vegas concerns go, but I definitely like him in this ballpark. I like him in this matchup. I definitely like the bounce back potential here, given the fact that they were shut down by Keuchel. So the Houston bats here, I definitely like some of these prices. You look at Harley, just kind of an average right-handed arm. Has been around a couple of teams, kind of just bounced around, hasn't really got anything substantial going, hasn't really had a great season. Struggles, he's pretty average against both sides of the plate. So I really don't mind a Springer at 4K. Correa, obviously, at 4.4, a lot of upside at that price. And even some of the cheaper bats like a Bregman or Colby Rasmus is certainly there. Altuve at 5.3 is a little pricey for me, but I think he kind of fits in if you are doing a Houston stack, who, Houston is projected for 5 runs, so you can certainly look at that. Mets and Tigers here, and Matt Boyd versus Logan Verrey. This is the game I definitely could see myself getting a ton of exposure to. Not really on the Mets side. I'm not a big fan of their price tags. I know Matt Boyd, lefty, kind of up and down, but not paying a 4,800 for Walker or 4,800 for a Jay Bruce. Wilmer Flores at 3,600 is certainly intriguing. He's a nice value, but I think we can kind of key in on the Mets or on the Tigers side of things. That lineup looks a lot better with JD Martinez. I mean, obviously it was dangerous beforehand, but now you kind of expanded the first 5, 6 hitters. Now it's 1 through 7. It's just an incredibly tough lineup to get through. And I like all those names. I mean, obviously Miguel Cabrera 5,300 is expensive, but given the fact that everyone else is 4,500 or below, is certainly a lot of value. And you look at Verrey, against right-handers, he's been hit pretty hard, and this is a heavy right-handed hitting team. So I'm all aboard the Tigers tonight. A lot of stacking potential there. Definitely all cash game worthy. If you did want a little bit of a discount, you could use Martinez in comparison to Cabrera. We've seen that pay off before, dropping down. We saw it against Shields. Certainly something that can happen tonight, just given the fact that the matchup is solid for both of them. Moving on to the next one here, you got the Blue Jays and Royals, Danny Duffy versus Aaron Sanchez. This is a game I'm not really looking to target a ton of. Obviously, the Blue Jays would be a contrarian stack, just because I don't expect them to be really high-owned as a whole. I do think, obviously, Josh Donaldson and even Jose Bautista and even a Devin Travis will have some ownership, just because the Bautista and Travis, price tags are so low here, 33 and 3,200. And obviously Donaldson against lefties is always a potential threat. And you look at Duffy, I mean, there's obviously some home run potential for a lot of those guys. 1.25 home runs per 9 going back to last year. He's been missing a lot of bats, and this Toronto team really hasn't been great against lefties this year in general. So something that I'm kind of staying away from. Overall, I think I'm just kind of staying away from pretty much this game in general. I'm not looking to pick on Aaron Sanchez. It's just something that I'm staying away from. I like Sanchez quite a bit. And even though the Royals' price tags are pretty low, so is their run total, and that ballpark's not really a great factor anyway. Braves and Cardinals next here. Carlos Martinez, Roberto Hernandez, and obviously hoping for more out of the Cardinals offense in tonight's game. Definitely still like Carpenter if you're paying up at second or third base. Matt Adams, a cheap first baseman, same thing with Holiday and Piscotty, kind of cheaper outfielders. Average right-handed arm. Definitely look at this Cardinals offense again. I hope people are turned off by last night's performance, just because they're over, a 5-run predicted total yet again. They are at home, big favorites, and on the Brave side, I'm not really looking to use anyone against Carlos Martinez. Freddie Freeman might be the only one I consider at 4-1 as kind of a contrarian move there. Marlins and Rockies here, Chad Bettis, Andrew Kashner. New against Chad Bettis. Chad Bettis is a reverse splits guy, 351 WOBA, 1.35 runs per 9. Obviously, you look at Stan at 4,300. I know he struggled against right-handed pitching this season, but that's way too low in cores for a matchup against Chad Bettis, who doesn't really miss any bats. Once again, you're looking at the top 5 in this lineup. Ozuna at a decent price at 4,600. Yelich is really the only one that's priced up over 5K. So the Marlins certainly a lot of value here in consideration. They are facing a really weak right-hander. They've dropped down quite a bit in price from last night. So I'm definitely in on the Marlins again. I'm expecting bigger things. As far as Andrew Cashner goes, picking on him, you go back to last year, 367 WOBA allowed, 1.54 home runs per 9. Obviously, Cargo and Blackman over 5K are the expensive options. David Dahl, once again, really cheap option there, 3K. That's the guy who I look to for value on DraftKings, not really on FanDuel, where we saw him priced up quite a bit. Arenado 5-2, obviously in play. It's just kind of the usual 4 there to consider. So definitely a game to get in tonight. Definitely a game to kind of focus on. I'm expecting a little bit more run support on both sides there from last night. Brewers and Diamondbacks, Patrick Corbin versus Matt Garza. I do like Villar and Braun and Hernan Perez. I do wish they were a bit cheaper, but obviously given Patrick Corbin's struggles at home, given his struggles against right-handers, 350 WOBA, 1.26 home runs per 9, it's something I'm definitely looking at to kind of get some exposure to. I'm hoping it kind of goes a little bit underowned just due to the fact that they are so expensive, but their success against lefties is pretty solid. And in that ballpark, I like it quite a bit. Definitely more of a GPP move just because you're paying up, and I think you can pay up for safer options elsewhere. But the Brewers, I mean, there is some run support there. You can look in that ballpark for a handful of home run potential. But really, it's just kind of the front four there in that lineup. As far as the Diamondback side goes, Matt Garza has struggled against both sides of the plate. 368 WOBA going back to last year, 1.45 home runs per 9. Righties 348 WOBA, and this was a down game last night. I really expected more from this Diamondbacks offense, but here the price down a little bit in comparison to tonight. Jake Lamb's lost a couple hundred. Same thing with Goldschmidt, and I do like the front four, and I do like the value that David Peralta brings as well. So, excuse me. I am looking to use the Diamondbacks really in all formats tonight. I think, given the fact that they're back at Chase Field, the fact that they got kind of healthy, David Peralta adds a little bit of bump in that lineup, especially from the left side of the plate. I'm okay with using these guys. I'm okay with using them really 1 through 6 there. Certainly an intriguing option, kind of a cash game GPP option type team tonight. Phillies and Padres, Paul Clemens versus Jake Thompson. Both these teams projected for over 4 runs. Obviously, both these offenses are something that can be lackluster at times, but you can certainly take a look here. And the one thing that kind of caught me off guard are some of these price tags. As usually, they mostly sit in the 3K range, or 3,000's not really down in 3K. But Ryan Champagne versus Solarte, Will Myers. Hooks Dickerson always have some intriguing options here on the Padres side from the left side outside of Will Myers. Going up against Jake Thompson, who doesn't have a big swinging strike rate, has been solid down the minors as far as limiting damage. It had an ERA right around 250. But overall, he doesn't miss a ton of bats, and it's something that the Padres could take advantage of tonight. So that's an intriguing option. And the same thing goes with the Phillies. You look at Clemens, not a good arm by any means, especially against righties. So I'm definitely looking at targeting Aaron Alter, Michael Franco, Cameron Rupp. Those are all really intriguing options. And with Odubel Herrera kind of dropping down the lineup a little bit, I'm kind of off of him at that price. But I definitely think there is some GPP potential there. Moving to the last game of the night, Angels and Mariners, Taijuan Walker versus Tyler Skaggs. Tyler Skaggs has been pretty solid in his first 2 games here, and I think the only 2 that I really need to mention is still Nelson Cruz at 4,600, and even Daeho Lee at 2,800 if you want to kind of punt first base. So I'm okay with that. I don't expect really any real big outburst of runs. I'm not really interested in any Angels bats against Walker. Mike Trout at 5-2. Obviously, I would rather go in other directions like Coors. So I'm just kind of staying away from this game in general, but always Cruz is in play against a lefty, even though Skaggs has been solid. And Daeho Lee, just given the value he brings and the potential upside, he's a nice GPP pivot play. So that's going to wrap things up with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all great tools and content.